This podcast is brought to you from our friends at Tincata Protective Fabrics, Emergency Networking, Magna Grip, and IFSTA.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to another edition of your favorite every couple month radio show. It's the Larry Conley radio show. Once again, I'm not Larry Conley, and let me just be honest with you. We barely got him on today because he's in such demand down at the White Castle. But anyway, we're happy today to have him and a fantastic guest with us. Today is Chief Craig Haigh, and so we're going to have a great conversation, a lot of fun. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him, everybody's favorite Chocolate Thunder, Deputy Chief of Training for Collinsville, Larry Conley.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for another it's a blessing to do another episode.
Yes, it is.
That doesn't happen. People I know who, as my grandmother say, gone to glory, and some people are not with us anymore. And but it's always a blessing to be back. Speaking of grandmother, yesterday was grandmother's birthday, so math is right. She's been 108 years old, and
wow,
long time. But so anyway, I sometimes think about some of her wisdom and things I miss, and her being just grandmother, you know. Mama Elaine's mama, my grandmama, and felt like she was everybody's mama, you know, the way she carried.
All my friends thought she was their mama too.
Yeah, you know, definitely. But we wouldn't be. The reason I bring that up because we wouldn't be here today on this podcast if it wasn't Wade Holland, the third.
That's the truth.
Respect.
One day I'm gonna have a daughter, and she gonna have some boys, and they're gonna have it's in the future a thing called a potty cat or something like that. So,
that's a great idea.
Right, they'll be on this thing called a television on talking. And on the laptop, you know, you'll see. They think I'm making it up. You'll see.
Yeah.
They thought she was crazy, you know. The Lord,
a device called a lap dance. Wait a minute.
Right. But no, ladies.
Don't start nothing. Won't be nothing.
Yeah, just like she predicted, we're here, you know. And I don't know if you guys are a big fan of the Jetsons. I remember as a kid watching the Jetsons.
Oh my goodness!
Art imitates, life, and old James Bond movies, and watching the Jetsons, and they talk on TV and they talk to screens and all that. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk that? That's what we're doing exactly.
You're on your phone talking.
You know
what I'm saying? That's crazy.
Who you talking to?
Amazing stuff.
They had party lines, but you couldn't see the party you were talking to.
Yeah.
Hear them,
And I'm just amazed that you could just. I still do that. I got too many Amazon boxes in my house. That's why I have to. I'm glad the recycle people come every Thursday. So otherwise, I'm a straight hoarder. But it's weird to me that I can still do this. I'll be scrolling through my phone, see something. I can use that. I press a button, and I used to exaggerate and say, "Wow, it seemed like within hours." But remember, back in the day, it was days. Now, you order something, and they'll say, "Get it today by 5 o'clock." I'm like, "What?"
Today?
I feel like Lil John. What? Okay.
Okay.
Right. These days, But what I'm also glad about, and I think the last time I taught a class, we were talking about the fire service and the traditions and the advancements and the traditions in the fire service. And I made the comment that, because these days we're moving toward, one day there might be something, God forbid, as electric fire trucks, Ooh, I'm not going to speak too much on that because Craig Haigh is a pretty progressive guy. He might say, oh, we talking about electric fire trucks. We've done some research. I'm not going to speak on that.
I'm going to leave that one alone tonight. We're not talking about, yeah.
But for us old heads, and Craig is old, but he's a progressive old head. But, but me, in a couple of days, I'll be even older. But where I'm going with that is that, imagine the electric fire trucks is going to be a weird occurrence. But no matter how fancy fire trucks get, no matter how fancy new techniques and new technology and all that get, and we are blessed to have technology, but make no mistake, I enjoy different parts of it. However, nothing beats to me as being a firefighter the connection of there was fire has always been a principle. Water has always been a principle. And even in caveman time, they had the whatever was running out the fire cave to go put the fire. You have to do stuff to the fire, and they had to use a container, whether it was a bucket or a rock or something, to go put the fire out. That has not changed. Technology or not, that has not changed. So it's really cool to be part of something that's, for now, unchanging, I guess, until you develop robots that will put us out of business. But right now, as a firefighter, you still have to find this water source, run it through, the distribution system, which is a lot of times the apparatus, and then and that distribution holder fits it through the various degrees and diameters of hoses and appliances, and you put the fire out still in hand combat when it comes to that. And so it's still part of that and holding on to that until that gets replaced maybe one day. Hopefully I'm not here by then. Hopefully I'm dead by the time that fun is over. But thank God we still can do cool stuff like that, even with, but I like talking principles. David and I have been doing a program for about a dozen years now. And I think the reason it's still prevalent today and it keeps evolving. Mama Elaine said this a long time ago in our planning, is that this is like a gold mine. You keep digging, you're going to keep on getting stuff from the same mine that's going to, benefit us going forward. And we didn't know when we started that things like mental health and things like that. It was talked about, but it wasn't championed as much as it is now, and needs to be championed even more, going. But has evolved to even address that issue, just because we kept mining, in the principle personal leadership. I'm bringing that up as far as making that connection and segue is because there are a few people who come to town, and Chief Haigh can probably speak on this. They come to town and they like snake oil salesmen. You got the latest fire thing or the latest mnemonic or the latest whatever. And then you hear about it, it's hot, it hits the internet, and then all of a sudden you really don't hear about it too much anymore, And then that person's always chasing the new thing to talk about, to keep up, to stay in the spotlight. But I've always been attracted to, in this service, is principled people. People who stay principled, people who are like fire and water. They was here before we got here, and they're going to be here when we gone, because of where we live dictate these principles. And so when you meet principled people, you just tend to be attracted to them. And when we first heard about Craig Haigh, we didn't know him from anybody else. He was a there was a chief in somewhereville, Illinois, blessed enough to go teach for him. But I mean, just to be honest, we didn't, no disrespect, we didn't know him. He was a,
Right.
So, but once we got to talking to him and got to know him, we picked up right away that we were dealing with principle. We were dealing with fire. We were dealing with water. We were dealing with integrity. We were dealing with fidelity. We were dealing with, some principles that no matter what technology,
Right.
where you're fighting fires, whatever, principles prevail, principles win. And so we are always happy to do what we do because we really try to keep it grounded in principles. And we meet other people who are grounded in principles. It's just fun to have those kind of conversations. And
absolutely,
a few years back, we had Chief Haigh. He was still employed at that point, and we had him on the show.
Now he's working at Popeyes. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's called.
I tried to go to White Castle, but they wouldn't take me.
Right.
I didn't want to say White Castle, you know.
I had my Castle on lock,
You feel like I'd be throwing shade at you,
Yeah. But had a very storied career, and was just a kind of person that you knew that he had a progressive fire department. We saw that when we were up there with some of the studies you guys were doing. You had people hooked up to different noids and solenoids and stuff.
There were lots of noise. Yes, yes.
What's going on here? This place. But it was just cool to see that kind of progression. And then a common friend in David Woodard and down in at the lake, and saw you speak there. That's the first time I saw you speak. Once again, very powerful, very principled, and so we said the last time we had you on the show that we was going to have you back, and I'm glad we was able to make time for that to happen. We always have some takeaways from people I talked to before. And one takeaway I remember the last time, and it has been, I've seen the good and bad of it. And man, you were right on point. That's succession planning. And we talked a lot on the last about how important succession planning is and how important it is to not only do your job, but for the longevity and the quality of the job going forward, have somebody else in the hopper ready to go, and you contributed to their success already. You're not arrogant enough that I'm going to be here forever. You're not arrogant enough to think it's all mine, and you got to figure it out yourself. You pay it forward, you invest, you do what you do to make sure that the fires, not only your fire service, but the fire service as a whole stays, in the forward moving progressive.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit magnagrip.com.
You can't think that way unless you are based in principle, So anyway, since then you wrote a book, you retired, and we're going to get you in Collinsville soon. I'm learning a lot of stuff about management and budgets and all that kind of stuff, and so it's easier said than done. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, man, I can get you. Then I go to the budget, be like, maybe not right now, So
let's hold off on that.
but it's gonna happen. But my point is that I still want to circle back and make sure that I know we stay in touch sporadically through social media. We reach out when we see something, and so I consider you a good friend in that regard. And you can't go anywhere and say anything about Craig Haigh. He was like, man, that's the guy, right? That's a great guy. A lot of weird people. And it's funny because it's funny. Me and David have been in situations where we was like, oh yeah, so, and then people would get quiet and be like, oops. Loved in all circles,
never mind.
Yeah, well, never mind. I'm sorry, we brought that person up, But the firefighters will tell you, that person's an a-hole or whatever. may be, it ain't no. The one thing always loved about the fire service is straightforward. They don't pull punches. People either like you or they don't, or they respect you or they don't, and right then for the most part, what's up. But I want to get you back on the show because it's always a great conversation in leadership, great conversation in strategic and succession planning, which I know are topics of yours. I really want to drill down some more because I think last time we talked, we talked about it, but we said we was going to have you back to really drill on those and how it can really help people watching the show about the importance of leadership, succession planning, being a principled person. You're not afraid to proclaim your love for God and Christ and the whole thing. And these days, sometimes that could be frowned upon and maybe mess up some of your real estate, but it doesn't matter. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dave has introduced me, but I'm going to introduce our good friend, retired chief and president of Haigh Solutions LLC. Actually ran by his wife.
Right.
That's the real brains in operation.
That's what's really got the solution is what?
You smack them on the butt with the folders. They're going out there and make that money, Craig.
That is exactly how it goes. You know how it plays out well.
Right. So, how you doing? Welcome back. And what's been going on with you in the last few years since we had you on the show?
Well, man, I appreciate being back. It's I love spending time with you guys. I love being on the show, and it's just consistently a real privilege for me to do this. So, thanks for having me back this evening and a chance for us to get the chance to talk. So, as you alluded to, I retired. It's been it was 2 years this past July. So it seems like it's been 2 months, but it's been 2 years. But the interesting thing, I think, I think last time I was with you, we talked quite a bit about succession planning and those aspects associated with moving your organization forward for the long haul versus just the time frame that you have to be there. In my retirement, we really executed a promise that I made to the city council 19 years earlier. And I came in from the outside, the department as the outside chief at Hanover Park. They thought they had a problem. They thought they needed to hire outside as a bunch of departments do. And they followed that, what I call the new broom sweeps clean theory. They're gonna come get somebody from the outside, bring them in. They're gonna come in. They're gonna solve all the problems, and things are gonna be better. The reality of that situation is that they really didn't have the problems they thought they had. There were some really, really good folks at City Hall. There were some really, really good folks at the fire department, and they just simply weren't communicating. And so I told them when they offered me the job, I said, okay, look, here's the dig. Here's the gig. This is what you're gonna get if you get me. And if you don't want that, then you should probably grab one of the other guys that you've been talking to. But I told him, I said, look, I don't think it's a good idea for most organizations to hire from the outside for their top spot. I know sometimes it has to happen, and there's a number of reasons why that takes place, but I generally think it's a bad idea. And so if you hire me, what you get with me is that I'll come in and we'll figure out what's going on. We'll look at recruitment. We'll look at hiring. We'll look at onboarding. We'll look at career development and progression and getting our people trained, which is what really got us introduced together when you guys came as part of our officer development program. But that I said, my goal will be that I will be the last outside fire chief that Hanover Park ever has to hire. Now, I don't know that that'll play out that way, but certainly that is what my goal is.
Seconds count when responding to an emergency. Minutes save count when documenting your day. Emergency Networking makes records management easier and faster with its Fire and EMS solution. User-friendly, complete online and offline functionality, highly customizable, all at an affordable price. For more information, please visit emergencynetworking.com.
So we spent 19 years working really, really hard on that issue as it relates to succession planning. And when you say to the fire service, "Hey, let's talk about succession planning. We need to do it. We need to have it. We need to build it." Generally, I would say, one, we as the fire service, we don't have a clue what succession planning is. We don't understand it. We don't know what to do with it. I talk to fire chiefs that are 2 years from retirement, and they say, "Oh man, my city council's telling me I gotta get involved and get some succession planning going." I'm like, dude, if you're 2 years away from retirement, you missed it. You're too late.
Wow. 2 years
It's
too late.
it takes a generation to grow and develop succession planning. So when we started it, we were in some ways blazing an unknown path because there wasn't a lot of models to follow. But where ultimately we got to, I had served as the fire chief at Hanover Park 19 years. I had maxed my pension here in the state of Illinois. So we were in that scenario where, as we were growing and developing the leadership team of the organization, Chief Eric Force, my deputy chief and executive officer, Eric was ready to be fire chief. He had prepared himself. He had his master's degree. He had been involved in leading the organization for a number of years, and he wanted to be fire chief. And so it was at that point where, if you're going to do succession planning and you're going to do it well, and you're the fire chief, at some point you're the guy in the way. And so all of a sudden I'm the guy in the way, and I knew it was coming. But you don't ever really know it's coming until you get there and you step back and you say, okay, it really is time for Eric to be chief. So we had some great conversations and said, okay, if you're ready, it's time for me to step aside. We had conversations with the city manager and the mayor, and so everybody knew that it was going to take place. But I stepped out of the picture, and we moved Eric up. It was probably one of the cooler experiences of my professional career. We're standing in front of city council chambers, and I actually took off my chief's badge, handed it to the mayor so that he could be pinned and sworn in there as the new fire chief, and has done a great job in the time he's been there. So when we talk about succession planning and my retirement, they're really completely married and sealed together, because the retirement, I wasn't ready to walk away from the fire service, but it was a fulfillment of a commitment I made to the city council when they hired me to say, at some point I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to let the next generation lead the organization forward. So that's what got me there. And then it was, okay, I got to figure out what to do. So I guess I'll go to work for my wife.
But isn't it cool to be able to do that on a well-planned, principled term than being forced out, or somehow some kind of, I don't know, unpublished war that you have with the next person coming up, and you kind of begrudgingly or going through the motions in front of city council. Isn't it cool to just be able to do it on just based on your success terms? So
yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. It was pretty special for me to get to watch this succession plan model play out. We had grown and developed staff, and we'd had retirements at all various ranks, but we hadn't had that top position turnover. So it was pretty special for me to step back and say, okay, did we get it? Did we get it right? I believe we got it right. And to watch the transition actually take place.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was, I guess, selfish for me to say, but I was able to step out of the position. I hadn't, like so many fire chiefs that sometimes to no fault of their own had got involved in a scandal or something bad had happened in the organization, and the being in the top spot, the heat rolls down to you. You're where the buck stops, and all of a sudden you find yourself on the outside of the organization. And and the other thing that just really was profound to me in all of the 25 plus years that I served in a position wearing 5 bugles is that I never had a line of duty death. And I had some injuries. I had some serious injuries. We had some folks that went off and were pensioned off because of their injuries. But I never had a line of duty death under my watch. And I remember leaving the day. That they had my walkout ceremony, which was just incredible. I feel so blessed that they treated me and sent me off the way they did. But I remember leaving and thinking, I didn't go out with a scandal that was going to be a problem or that had forced me out. And I had never had a line of duty death. And I just really felt blessed for both of those things.
IFSTA is dedicated to updating firefighting techniques and safety through the creation of our manuals, apps, curriculum, Resource One, and more. Our high-quality, technically accurate, and affordable training and education materials have made us a worldwide leader of the fire service. Visit us at ifsta.org for more information.
That was a blessing.
1 out of 2 ain't bad for me. No.
Yeah.
That's a great legacy to leave. Example for your successor. What kind of got you thinking in the mindset of succession planning in the way of drilling down? Because a lot of people know it in theory, but they don't put any active, nothing active behind it. They don't put together a game plan. It's a nice thing to talk about. It sounds good, like if you speak. But what made you say, "Look, I'm getting ready to do it"? Because I know succession planning has always been around. Let's say that, and probably more in the corporate world than ever. But in the fire service, at least, and maybe I wasn't exposed to it. At least for me, it didn't feel like it was always a strong topic in the fire. Like, maybe, Fred, he been here pretty long. Maybe he'll want the job when I'm gone, or, it was just kind of a haphazard way to pass the buck or whatever. And you just it was a roll of the dice that maybe the next person will come in and do it better. But that's different than having an intentional game plan where here I am, here's the end vision of where we want the department to go. Who's ready to step up and be mentored, so to speak, in that vein, and then ready to take the reins on and then call it successful succession planning. And so, because you started 19 years ago, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like 19 years ago that this was a big word, big deal, big topic. It sounds like now more and more people are realizing it and are doing it because the fire department, a lot of fire departments, especially the older ones, are kind of aging, and the guys in 40 years, they don't have a game plan who's going to really be after them. Then to me, the curve is going to take a serious dive before they have a chance of rising back up. And succession planning would meet that and keep things rising. So being kind of a visionary, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but being kind of visionary, we know what sparked you to think like that, and even better, what sparked you to execute. So you can have this type of
outcome.
Outcomes. He froze.
Yeah, I think he froze. Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh,
There you go.
All right.
there you go.
Your wife would say hi.
Maybe, yeah.
get kicked off or something over here. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, if it was a hard question, Keith, you didn't have
potty
to
break before you get a succession plan. Got
Right.
Yeah.
potty break.
Yeah. But did you hear the question?
Potty plan.
Did you?
It was if I picked it up before whatever happened and I got knocked off was the question of what actually like led me down that path to think about succession planning. That sum it up.
Yes. It was. It's kind of feels like it's more of a newer topic. I know it's not a new topic.
Yeah.
It feels like it's more of a newer topic, and you kind of started this game plan 19 years ago. I was just trying to get in your headspace of what made you think about it, what made you execute, and to be that kind of visionary that it ends up with this successful outcome now.
Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology, only from Tenkata Protective Fabrics.
That's a really interesting question, and I honestly I don't know that I've got a super good answer for it. As I think about back at that time when we were starting to talk about succession planning and what the organization would look like and where we were going to go. I remember I had seen over the years so many fire departments that had went outside for fire chiefs, and they would go hire somebody. They would bring them in the door. They didn't know the culture of the organization. They didn't know the players. They didn't really understand what it was to be a member of that department, and that they would come in and they would impart in so many ways the organization that they just left, and they would try and take that department and make it what they just left, instead of actually coming in the door and saying, okay, I work for a new organization and I need to learn this organization. I need to learn the players. I need to know the culture. I need to learn what's important and the people we serve and the expectations. And I'll change myself as the boss to lead that organization. I remember thinking that I had watched so many times that not occur, and that that transition of that new player at the top spot into the organization didn't go well. It was in many ways just a train wreck. And you had the entrenched folks that were part of the organization that were working really hard to do a good job, and they were being pulled by a new boss that in many ways just didn't understand. And I remember thinking about that and thinking that's a really bad idea. That's not where it is that we need to be. And I would say the other side, or the other aspect that as I think back and reflect on that was important to me is whether some people would say that this is a weakness on my side as a boss. And I would argue I don't think it is, but we all got blinders on it occasionally. But that I have always found that I really love my people, and I care for them. I care for their families. I feel a deep responsibility to take care of them, and I want to see them succeed. I want to see them operate and perform at their best. And so one of the ways for them to succeed and do well and operate and have opportunities to do some pretty cool things is to step into leadership positions, whether that is, you're the quartermaster and you're managing uniforms all the way up through an officer position, leading in some of the senior levels of the organization. I just wanted my people to succeed. And I felt like it was my responsibility to help them to do that. So as I think about it, I think that I'd watched enough organizations come apart, and my overall care and passion and desire to see my people succeed and do well. I think those things kind of married together to start me thinking about this succession planning topic. But yeah, that's a really pretty interesting question for you to ask me, because I've not really thought about much.
That's the last interesting question Larry's going to give you. Let me just be honest with you. But no, I mean,
that's what we do on the Larry Conley show. We answer interesting questions, Craig.
Right, exactly. Us and Dan Rather. But that what your answer made me think about, and this is me just getting your perspective. I mean, everybody knows I'm not a firefighter, but I have eaten many times at that firehouse sub. So let me just tell you.
And they need a succession plan.
I'm succession planning the next sub right now. But anyway, the thing where you're saying you want to see your people succeed, and you therefore, and I'm putting this paraphrase on, you're then investing in that way in them succeeding. That's got to be inspirational for not only the person who would be being, like trained and groomed, for lack of a better term, to take that spot when you leave, but the example that's setting, the inspirational example that's setting for the other people in the department, that, hey, if I really have aspirations to move up or to move, to the executive level, or anything that I would want to do to better myself in the fire service, here is a chief, somebody in the top spot who sets the tone for the organization, that we invest in your inspiration. I guess I'm asking you, that sounds like a rarity to me. Like it sounds like an idea that a lot of people might have, but not something that a lot of departments would necessarily do. And I'm asking you, do you think that there is currently like a challenge with getting people inspired to take on the top spot? And do you think that part of that is due to a lack of what you were trying to institute at Hanover Park?
Yeah, I would say yes, in a couple different aspects of that. One, I think that there are not a lot of organizations that are willing to commit the time and the resources, the financial resources, to support and grow and develop their people. We talk a lot about, and you go to these conferences and you talk to leaders, and they're like, oh, we invest in our people, we invest in our people, we invest in our people. And when you really start to boil that down and you say, hey, we invest in our people, well, it's a pretty nice thing that they throw out. But when you start to uncover a little bit and dig down into what they're actually doing, it's a inch wide and a mile deep. I'm sorry, it's an inch deep and a mile wide. There's just not, there's just not much there. It's a good talking point. So I don't think that there's a lot of organizations that really spend the time focusing on developing their folks. Those that do, those that I get the opportunity to talk to, those organizations are rare, but I would argue they're some of the finest fire service organizations that exist out there. Because their leadership is really dedicated to working with their staff to grow them and develop them and help them progress and move forward and really be the best that they can be with the skill set that they bring to the table. The second part of that I would say, which I think is pretty interesting in today's fire service world, and I would say I should probably say much more emergency services, because it's I see it equally occurring in law enforcement as well. And is this issue of, there's a lot of folks that won't, even though they may have the ability, even though they prepared themselves, they refuse to go after or step into those top positions. And we've talked about for a long time in our business that we live in a glass house, and our people are much more perceptive than what maybe we give them credit for. What I'm seeing a lot of, and I saw it in the last 3, 4, 5 years where I was actually at the department. I certainly see it now in the work I do as a public safety consultant across the country. But as our folks in these organizations, they watch how the senior leadership, the fire chief, the deputy chief, those players at the top of the organization, they watch their workload. They watch and see the stress. They see the personality changes that actually occur. I would say that an awful lot of us, by the time we leave that top spot, our mental health is not always really good because of the 24-hour connectedness, the unrealistic expectations. I mean, you just get the tar beat out of you in those top spots. And I think our people see that, and they watch that, and they see that oftentimes you're between a rock and a hard place. You got a city manager and a city council and elected officials, whatever that is for your community. They're over here on one side, and they got a solid, firm, strong position of this is where we're going to be. This is where we need to lead the fire department. And then you got your union folks or your firefighters over here, and they've dug in, they've entrenched. This is what we're going to do. And the player in the middle is the fire chief or the deputy or that senior leadership team. And there's no right answer. You either way, anything that you do is going to be challenged and beat up. And in some cases, if you take a position that's adverse to the position of your city manager and your elected official, you're unemployed. And so I see a lot of folks today that look at those positions and say, it's not worth the risk. I'm not going to do it. And that stifles any succession planning process that you've built in place. That it completely shuts it down because the folks won't step in. And then, you go outside and you do a search for, somebody that's going to come into your organization. And I mean, I will tell you, I see now much more than I did when I was actually wearing a uniform to work every day. We unfortunately have folks in our business that will sell their soul for a gold badge and 5 bugles, and they shouldn't be in the spot leading an organization. But when you have your really good folks that won't do it because they see the challenges, it puts us in a tough spot. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that's kind of a spot on way to look at it, being in that position now. And let me say this, I'm not saying it because, I feel like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? Because it's definitely been a blessing. It's definitely a serious learning curve. And so to balance my response with this is that, yes, I'm glad that I'm in a position to serve even better in the fire service, or serve in a different capacity. I was happy to be a company officer. I'm happy to be a chief officer now. I am learning that there's more to it than meets the eye. And I guess, I don't know if it's age or, finally get to see the little man behind the wizard stuff. But, when you first started, you're like, man, if I could just be captain one day. And then you're like, man, if I could just be chief one day. Like, so my point is, when you were wishing for it, it was like, it seemed like, man, my life would be set at that point. And so you got to have a lot of internal fortitude to do this kind of stuff, because it does take a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of knowing how to negotiate. It takes a lot of listening to all sides and trying to come up with the wise, necessarily the right answer, the wisest answer for everything involved, And so when you get your own buggy and your own desk and your own office and all those bugles. The price to pay for all that, So, and you need your own office so you can escape after you came out of a meeting.
There's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to be said for going out and getting in the buggy and going for a drive too.
Hey,
I gotta get out of here for a little bit.
I know we one time my fire chief did the same thing. We came out of kind of a challenging meeting, and so he came outside. I don't know why I was outside. He came outside, and I said, "Everything okay?" He said, "You feel like walking with me?" I'm like, "Where are we going?" We just that vague answer. You feel like walking with me? I don't know what it means, So, but we walked, and it started raining, and I remember saying to myself, like, "Hey, it's raining. Should we be getting back?" He didn't care. He was cool. He was just talking like he wasn't nothing happening. I'm trying to be empathetic, but I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm getting wet. Chocolate melts. Yeah, I got to get back to."
Right.
So, but anyway, seriously, you have to have you got to have a love for the job, love for people, and your love for people may, since you're not going to always agree, since you are going to run into some, some serious negotiations and all kind of different things. You got to have a love for people, because if you don't love people, there's a lot of things that can derail you in people's thoughts and suggestions and what they think should be, and it's just a lot of balancing act. It kind of reminds me of that whole. I don't know if you watch old variety shows like the Ed Sullivan Show, and they got spinning the plate. And then you spin one plate, you spin two plates. And the trick was to keep all the plates spinning without dropping them, And sometimes the job feels like is that, you're spinning all these plates and you try to drop them, to make sure that you lead properly. And my personal prayer is always that I want to lead the wisest way possible to truly serve, the people that we lead. And do it in a way that's as fair as I can be. It might not always be agreeable, but I want at the end of the day say, we didn't really see the way he did, but at least he was fair. It looked like he tried to take a fair approach to it. And at the end of the day, and that's all you can do. You can't. You heard that phrase. You want to please everybody, sell ice cream. So I don't sell ice cream. But it does change. And, I was thinking about what you said. It's unfortunate that it's come to this, because I can really see people looking at things like that, like, wow, I don't want those problems. So I'll just stay here, get on the fire truck and do the simple stuff and manage my money and, have my work-life balance and without the stress of what you're going through, and as heavy as the head that wears the crown is really, a true statement. But man, I never looked at it like that. So with that being said, with that viewpoint on it, does that get you a lot of business? You could tell us.
It does. It really does. When I retired, I had been over the years doing a lot of teaching and some. I had dabbled in some consulting work, helping some organizations look at some things that they had got or that they had going on, trying to figure out how to be a resource to help them. And I got it, I fielded, just because I've been a fire chief as long as I had and survived the storms. I was a guy that got called frequently by other chiefs that would say, "Man, how you do this? What do I need to know? Or I'm going through this situation. Can you talk me off the ledge, or be a sounding board for me? Whatever that would be." So when I decided that I needed to get out of the way and let the next phase of succession planning move forward. The decision was made that we would just move into doing full-time consulting work and helping public safety organizations navigate some of these challenges. So my wife and I created Haigh Solutions, and honestly, I thought when we started, I thought, well, if I could do about 30 hours a week, man, I'd be really blessed. That would, I'm not that good. There's not that many people that are going to want to talk to me. There's not that many people that are going to want my assistance. So if I could figure out 30 hours a week, I did okay. That's not been the case. It is, it is more than full time. And I have a handful of folks that do some work for me and help me out to try and help organizations out. But it's really interesting in this new role. I mean, I get to teach and speak and write and do all that stuff that I've always done, and that's a little you kind of set that aside. That's one part of it. But the other part is that when these organizations call and say, "Hey, I need your help. I need you to come take a look. I need you to help us sort out what's going on," they with rare exception, and I've been blessed that I've worked with a couple of clients that they were very forward thinking, and they were like, "Hey, we need to go in this direction. We need some expertise to help us sort that out." But for the most part, it is when I get the call, there's a problem, and something happened, or they have got a directive from their leadership, the elected officials or the city managers, that they need to go a certain direction, and we're kind of lost. What I've been really surprised by, and when we talk about quality, good leadership in the fire service and the need for folks to step up and assume those roles, and when people won't, I don't think it's healthy for the fire service. I've been really surprised at the number of situations that you see that we got called because there was financial mismanagement. Folks that did really bad things, or we get called because there's a power struggle and they're trying to make themselves look better. They're trying to get themselves promoted. They're trying to fight and argue and position themselves within the organization, and ultimately create a big train wreck in the organization. Those bad actors is usually why I get the phone call that says, "Hey, come take a look and help us sort this out." And I will say, I just over the last 2+ years of doing this, I've been really surprised at how often we see that. I feel like I've served the fire service all these years with kind of rose-colored glasses on, and I didn't really want to know what was going on, or I didn't believe it when I would hear things. And now with the what our company does, I get thrust into the middle of it, and I'm just really shocked by some of the bad behavior of some of our folks.
Do you find that it's harder to find solutions since you have more of a principled approach? Sometimes people come in and they're fixers, but they're just fixing. They're not necessarily as principled. Maybe being principled would get them a good result of, you're the answer we needed. Sometimes you come in and say, well, we're going to have to do it a little more principled, and this may hurt a bit, but it's going to have to happen for long-term solutions. Do you find yourself kind of bumping heads of trying to stay principled to who you are as a person, to your principal beliefs and successes, and trying to match that up against some bad actors who may just want to come in and just fix it and maybe compromise the principles.
Yeah, that we definitely see some of that. One of the positions that I've taken is as I try to help organizations adjust is that there is right and wrong, and there's a principled way to approach right and wrong, and I'm going to give you a recommendation based on that. Now, if you decide that you're going to go a different direction, you decide as the manager or the elected officials or the fire chief or whatever the leadership is there, if you decide you're not going to follow those principles, okay, that's spectacular. That's on you. But the report that I'm going to give you, the recommendations that I'm going to give you are going to be based on what I would argue the difference between right and wrong is going to come down to be. And sometimes there is pain. Sometimes there's hurt. Sometimes there's some folks that, they need to become successful in somebody else's organization. And you got to have the courage to bring that forward and say, they're not going to fit here, or what they did is wrong. And so I've just taken the position that I'm not going to compromise in the reporting of what they've hired me to do. I'm not going to compromise in that principle of right and wrong. I'm just going to bring it forward, and they get to do what they want to do. But the recommendation for me is maybe going to be different than what they decide.
Right.
Can you define? I know it sounds like a no-brainer, but succession planning. What is the definition of that, and how does it look when you actually employ it?
That's good stuff. I would say the best definition I can think of is the developing those who are coming up through the organization to be able to receive the torch of responsibility and then carry that torch going forward. That's how I literally how I view it in my mind when I see it. What's it look like when it occurs? When what I had noticed in the years that we worked on it is that in the early days when we were just starting succession planning, we were focused on really recruitment and hiring and onboarding and starting to do development. You'd have somebody that stepped into an officer position. Maybe they were promoted to lieutenant, and it would take them. I would say, even if they were really good and they had been maybe acting up in the role for a number of years as an acting lieutenant, it would still take them probably 6 months before they really had their act together and could function and do what it is they were supposed to do. What I noticed, and it became really very obvious to us, is as time went by and we continued the process of growing and developing our folks, that time from 0 to 60 started to lessen, and so you would have folks that they would get promoted, and instead of 6 months, it took them 3 months, and then a couple years down the road, you'd have new folks that would get promoted, and a month later they were 100% ready to go. So I don't know that you can ever say today you're this position and the next day you got a bunch of bugles on your collar and the transition is, there's no time factor in there. But what I noticed is that time factor shrank significantly. So in my mind, when I think about the succession planning aspect, that's how it works. That's how I knew that it was working, is those folks were ready to go much, much, much sooner.
Okay, good. I was wondering what the outcome, that was going to be my next question. is how does the outcome look so that you know this is working, you know. But I see. Hmm.
It was
Did
fun
you
to watch.
experience it on before you got to be before you moved to Hanover Park? Like, did somebody do that for you?
No, I
I was the
experienced
first.
the opposite side of
Hmm.
what succession planning would be, but
Succession
you
planning,
you you received you received some
Depression.
motivation
I mean,
to do succession planning, huh?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I watched it fail repeatedly where
Mhm.
we didn't do
Wow.
anything, and
Right.
Wow.
I was like, well, let's not do that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting.
let's talk about your book. Dynamic,
Why are you saying I was getting ready to say that?
talk about your book, The Dynamic Fire Chief, and and based on some of the stuff we've been talking about, it's definitely an appropriate name for the book. You definitely have to be dynamic to be a fire chief. Today. So, but let's talk about the book in the sense that I think it can help a lot of people based on some of the notes. And I think it could definitely help people like me who is pretty much new in the chief officer role. And even though it's a blessed role, it's still a learning curve, a lot of learning I'm doing now, but nothing I don't think I can handle. Just, just
Mhm.
It's
unlearning
a
some
lot.
new stuff's a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and, I know I got friends who are aspiring to be, promote and things of that sort. So it looks like the book kind of walks you through. This is where you're going. This is some of the expectations. This is probably some of the things you should be doing to help you be successful. And it's a good, toolbox. And so anyway, why don't you kind of walk us through what you want people to get out of the book when they read it or study it? Just read it, just study this.
Mhm.
well, I love the term you just used of a toolbox because that really is what it's designed to be. Um,
Mhm.
one of the things when I got promoted, and keep in mind, as you guys have heard me talk about before, they promoted me way before they should have promoted me because I wasn't ready to be in the spot that all of a sudden I found myself in. But um, what I learned over the years is that there was just skills that I just flat didn't have, and I needed to learn them, and I needed to learn them quickly, and I needed to be able to apply them if I was gonna be able to survive. And when I tried to learn, I looked for resources. I tried to, it wasn't like it is today where you can just Google something and a bunch of junk will pop up.
Mhm.
As I was looking for books on finances or books on the legal issues in the fire service or picking any number of topics. They didn't exist, and um, you couldn't find them. You do your fire officer one and your fire officer two, and they were kind of okay programs, but they really didn't give you the stuff that you needed to have.
Right.
And so I struggled. I struggled mightily trying to figure out how to do some of this stuff and to understand it. And because there was no succession plan, nobody taught me, nobody modeled the right way. There was no, let me take your hand and show you how to do something. So,
Mhm.
in many ways, what I know was self-taught and kind of figured it out. Um, so
Mhm.
the premise behind the book is to help those folks that are in the spot as well as those that are aspiring to be in the top spots, um, to,
Mhm.
to develop some skill set as well as being a reference book to say here's how you actually go through and do these various aspects.
Mhm.
So we in writing it was one of those things. Well, you could write 40 chapters on 40 different things. I took the position to say, okay, let's focus on 8 or 9, and we'll see if this is successful for the fire service. We'll see what else we're missing. We'll see what else we need. Maybe we need to do some more work, but let's start there. So it was really put together based on my personal experience, as well as the questions that folks would call me and ask me. You know, how do I actually do budgeting in the fire service? How do I manage my finances? How do I do long-term capital planning? How do I put money away to go after a fire truck so I don't have to ask for a referendum, or I don't have to borrow money or do some other weird thing to, is there some way I can create a savings account where I can pay cash for my apparatus? Absolutely. The answer is the answer, but there's a way to do that. Succession planning, employee performance evaluations, discipline is a huge, huge, huge issue. And I see it all the time with my consulting work, is that sometimes I get called because folks don't know how to discipline their employees appropriately, and now they got into trouble, and now they're like, "Well, come get us out of it." Well, I don't know that I can get you out of it cheaply, So that's what the book is designed to do, and whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a career fully paid department, the skill set is exactly the same. I spend a lot of time talking about that the fire chief needs to view themselves as to what the job really is today. We're firefighters. We want to think of ourselves as firefighters. The problem is once you get to the top spot, you really are the chief executive officer of the organization, and your bosses, your constituents, the elected officials, the city managers, they view you as the chief executive officer of the fire department. And most of us we don't have the skill set, because we were never taught and never developed to be the chief executive officer. We got skill set to be great firefighters, to be great operational folks. But that, when you're in that top spot, that's not usually what they need us to do most of the time. So the book is designed to really help chiefs focus on those CEO type skills at whatever capacity they are in their organization, and to, in many ways, just be that flat reference book to say, okay, we're going to create an apparatus sinking fund. I convinced the city council that we should do an apparatus sinking fund, so 20 years down the road I can pay cash for my new fire truck. How do I do that? Okay, well, go to the book and it'll teach you how to do it. So wow. It's designed to really be that tool to help chiefs be successful, when I don't necessarily think those tools were easily available, or they were written so you as the fire chief, you couldn't figure it out. You'd read it and be like, I don't understand what that really means.
Wow,
This is a fireman who is writing so that you can figure it out using firefighter terminology and examples.
Relatable,
Wow.
And the other thing that I tried to do with the book is I tried to be really transparent. And so when you're reading it, you will read stories that of where I had situations that occur and I worked through them, and some of them will be stories of where I got it right, but there's probably more stories in there where I got it wrong, and what I actually learned from that process.
And
that's
so really good.
I just wanted. I thought, well, we read all kinds of junk where people tell you how great they are. Well, man, I ain't that great. So I'll tell you what I screwed up and what I learned. And so that's kind of how we put it together.
That's a lot more relatable too, because at the moment where you really need the help, you don't feel like the greatest. So sometimes you don't want to hear about some guy who's like, I always had this cape on my back. You're like, well, I can't relate to that. But if you see that somebody screwed up like you screwed up, you know what I mean? A lot of times you think, well, okay, let me see, how they navigated and came out better on the other side of that,
Sounds like.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it sounds like you discovered like the principles, I mean, not this, I use the term discovered, but, there were just principles that how you would do things anyway, not just, I come in there and I supposed to fight fires or do whatever, but some of those things are just principles of leadership and principles of how you assess problems and figure out solutions. Would you say?
I think that hits it very well. I mean, there wasn't anybody teaching me for the most part how to do this junk. I had to figure it out, and and I feel like I was really blessed because I got to be a fire chief for a long time, and a lot of folks don't get the opportunity to be in the top spot for a long time, and they also don't. From day one, you're under the gun. You don't get the opportunity to learn and figure these things out. You're breathing air through a straw because your head's underwater, and so for me, I was blessed because of the longevity that I had, and I worked for some really good bosses that I think they realized I was stupid, so they gave me time to kind of learn some of the things that I needed to learn, and so it's those principles I figured out and I tried to write down and share.
That's good. That's
good.
good.
It's always good when people are transparent because in the internet, the good and bad about the internet is, definitely from the informational standpoint and stuff like that. But what really saddens me is when I watch, maybe a firefighter or a department trying to be transparent so they can pass on lessons learned, and you got more people responding, being critical. They've done everything perfect their whole career. The difference, you just ain't get caught on camera with yours.
Right.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
It's just funny to hear that, but so it takes a lot of courage to. People don't want to market that because bad for the brand or whatever the case may be. And I like that you were courageous enough to show some transparency and then also show your victories as well. So the thing. You were saying something a little minute ago. I should have wrote it down while you were talking.
I think you were saying take your ginkgo.
Yeah. I think that's in chapter 10,
But the reason I brought up the thing about principles though is you have stuff that's probably unique to some degree to the profession, but principles are supposed to be something you can apply to your personal life and your professional life. There's not like total opposites or something. This is one thing I'm supposed to do because I'm a chief or whatever your title is, but then I have a whole different way of operating when I'm at home, or dealing with family or whatever. Some things are just what you're supposed to do, period, as a principal. And
Yes,
especially because you're almost always in some kind of leadership role, and to be able to put it together and then put it in a book. So not just you, but whoever wants to improve and be principle centered can have that to refer to. I think that's really good, especially for firefighters and people in roles like that, because sometimes people think all you need to know how to do is fight the fire, but the fire is not always a burning building.
I appreciate you bringing that up because I think one of the most critical things we can do in leadership is we need to be the same dude all the time. And oftentimes we're not. Oftentimes we put on the gold badge and the white shirt and the bugles on our collar and it's this false mask of what we project to folks in the role, but when you take that stuff off, you're a very different person. And man, that doesn't work. Your principles, your guiding principles need to be the same principles whether you got that uniform on or not. And and sometimes that, that's a nice thing to say, but it's a struggle to live out. I mean, we all got egos. We all got the things that we say. Hey, we're not gonna let anybody know that. We don't want anybody to know that information about us. And that becomes a tough spot to be in. The other thing that struck me as you spoke is the most success that I've had with the book since it was been published is not in the fire service. The vast majority of the books that we have sold so far have been sold to the private sector business world, which I'm blown away by.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And these folks call and they'll say, hey, we want you to come speak to our conference. We want you to be the keynote. And come talk to us about leadership principles. And I'm like, man, you guys, I'm a fireman. You guys make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in your business, and you want me to come talk to you about leadership? That seems kind of nuts. But they're struggling just like we are. And having always been a fireman, never lived in the outside world. I don't know what that's like. So now you get a little bit of a glimpse of that, and they're interested in my book. They want to buy my book, and they want me to talk about these things with them. Has been really interesting, and has led me to think more about that issue of principles you talk about. That really leadership is leadership. Leading people is leading people. And whether you're in the fire service, law enforcement, public safety, some way, church, private industry, we're all in the people business, and it's all about leading people, and we all lead people the same. And that's been a lesson.
Next time you get one of those calls though for a corporate thing where you got to go and do a keynote, you should show up and then just talk to them about their smoke detectors and see how that goes. Don't do anything about leadership. Talk to them about it.
I walk on the stage. Walk on the stage, bring a smoke detector with me.
Yeah,
right. They didn't detect the smoke that was going on behind the scenes in their offices.
Right.
You have more. It was more than one kind of fire.
That's some good stuff there.
No, and that's why, and kind of when we started the show, that's what we were talking about, is that the principle of things, and stay principled. Then it doesn't matter what arena you rock in, because we all live by a certain amount of principles. We all live here on earth, and no matter whether you're a good person, bad person, whether you try to defy principles or not, you're going to submit to them, whether you want to or not. So the more you line yourself up with them, no matter what your profession or what your walk in life is, then that's just going to lead you to better outcomes than the opposite. And I think leaders who understand that have better results. And better reputations. Like you didn't say maybe, and maybe you did, but maybe I don't think one day 19 years ago you said, I think I'm gonna start being principled. We'll see how that works. And that'll lead to the vision of succession planning. Yes, Lord. I don't think it happened like that. I think you were principled in the first place, and then that practice has led to these different revelations and blessings and stuff. Because that's one of the things, part of my personal, one of the things that that I've talked about, and Dave and I've talked about, and we haven't developed something to support it, but we're always talking about ways just to continue to feed what we do. And one of the things we tapped in to is that personal succession planning. We do it for jobs or our organizations, but that personal succession planning, what am I going to be doing now? Where am I going to be in the future? What other kind of legacy I want to leave for my children or grandchildren or whatever, or just period. And your personal succession planning, like for example, whether you called it or not, I retired from being a fire chief, the personal succession planning, so I could still be in the fire service, but another capacity, and that capacity is helping people in the fire service and beyond and you still have a sense of part of a personal succession plan, and I think we really use the same principles that we use in our organizations, then we will have those type of great outcomes as well.
Now that I think about it, I haven't read what you're writing and what your books and stuff look like, but succession plans should be a part of life.
Yeah.
And just, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or something, or a father, raising children too as well, or your succession plan as the father or the mother. I don't think we ever think about them. We may think about them in terms of businesses, but it's a principle. And the thing about principles, they're so cool. They apply to whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Think about that.
I think you're right on. As you were talking, and Dave was talking, talking about the issues of principles, and being principled before getting promoted to the fire chief position. What went through my mind is, I had a mom and dad who beat principles into me before we ever
Now,
got
never
there.
mind. It's time. Oh, look at the time.
Yeah. So there was some principle development that had occurred, and then they handed me off to a principled individual that's kept me in line for a number of years. So yeah, that it's not.
My mother always hit us. We call it hit us with the paw when we was growing up. So.
Well, I'm saying she could beat principals into us, but also beat us in the principal's office a few times.
Right.
That was never fun.
That's what happens when you get called to the school.
Right.
What you better not do,
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I
for
think
real.
those things like that help. And really, I got a couple of articles that I'm working on, and they kind of address these same things. I know when we were talking about good home training, and the good home training we had growing up basically it wasn't forgotten. Whether it's beaten into you, you just learn. It wasn't forgotten, and I think it helped with all of our work ethic that all of my mother's children have. All of us are gainfully employed. Nobody's, at least going to jail anytime soon, I think. And so, but everything is, we all are capable of feeding ourselves and raising children and have raised children and all of that. But when it applies to our careers, we all got work ethic, and it came from the principles of you don't work, you don't eat, and knowing how to properly apply those principles. It just was no brainer for us to get up and go to work. It was no brainer to do a good job. It was no brainer to treat people well. It was no brainer to do all of these principled things that sometimes seem to be lacking, in a lot of things you encounter today. And we just couldn't imagine not operating any other way but the way we were raised. But we we weren't raised that way because I'm trying to groom you become a fire chief one day. Or I'm trying to become a film director, or I'm trying to groom you to do whatever my brother Corey does, whatever he does. Anyway,
Whatever that is.
but what I'm saying is that
Don't talk about Corey now. He's the
yeah,
chief.
but yeah, it's just a principled way of being, and so whatever you touch, you affect that outcome because you have a principled a foundation, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that's
it's who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. It's who you are.
That's the thing that people want to work on the least. They want to work on, like something that they do. They have a problem. They want that solution. They don't want to develop who they are, and that's often the thing that people think takes too much work or takes too long. We want to take a pill to lose weight instead of working out. We want to, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, as opposed to really just saying, I'm going to better who I am to meet whatever challenges, come down, instead of saying, what's the quick solution for that challenge, And so,
Yep. Because if maybe more people are like that, then you would have, maybe you'd be out of business. You wouldn't have to have paid solutions because there wouldn't be so many problems. So
yeah.
I think you called that exactly correct.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
If we had some more principled decision makers out there, I could wander around and talk about, the color you're supposed to paint fire trucks versus 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 this other junk that goes on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm finding that out, and it's a great lesson for me. I'm in between learning. I went back to school, so I'm in the middle of my master's program now. So between that and working in beautiful downtown Collinsville. Well, you know what? I can't say beautiful downtown Collinsville. Years ago, they had a brand change, and when you say downtown, I learned that they thought you meant downtown St. Louis, so they flipped the brand. So now that everything was normally downtown, they call in Collinsville uptown. So they say beautiful downtown Collinsville anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful uptown Collinsville,
Oh, wow.
yes, uptown. So, but no, it's a great experience all the way around for them to see what they saw in me to come over and do what I do. It's been a learning curve, a 360 learning curve, and then that throwing this when I'm learning the master's program, I just feel like I'm almost as smart as Craig Haigh right now. So I'm just
the master's program,
Conley solutions, So
yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe your program's different than it was for me. I felt like I was drinking water out of a fire hose while I was doing mine. So,
one thing I said as we start to wrap up, I remember the thing that impressed me the most when we came to Hanover Park and do glue up there is that Chief Haigh sat in on the and participated. I mean, time David and I have been to different places.
Yeah, Chief won't be in there.
And I'm Chief. Look, I mean, I got currently I have Jason Hoverman in coming teaching first do tactics in Collinsville, and so it's been great. And we got another class to do for us, but and our fire chief actually has set in on the class as well. And I've sat in on class even though I've seen it before, but I can't tell you how many times that David and I have, taught a class. And if you're busy, because like I said, even sitting in on Jason's class, there are things that pop up I got to go take care of, emails, deadlines, things of that sort. So you want to like walk past the office and say, "Hey, we're on break. It's going really good in there," and I'm like, "Yeah, sound like they need it. Keep up the good work and let me know what's going on." But we would run into chiefs like that. They're like, "How's it going there?" "Oh, it's going great. Those guys really need it." Be like,
Yeah.
"I think you need it." I was impressed that you're one of the few people who sat in, went through it, and you going through the same experience they are. And nobody
Anticipated.
come back to report to you what happened. Everybody do the same thing. That to me showed a lot of character and principle on your part as well.
I appreciate that. It was pretty incredible having you guys there with us, and the approach that you brought to the table, and to just some of the role playing thought processes, and openly sharing with our folks. They, as they came out of there, they had clearly grown, and then to watch them operate in that succession planning model, because we spent a lot of time tonight talking about succession planning. You guys were part of developing what it is that we were doing, and they used those principles, and the folks that are in leadership, some of the top leadership positions now, that sat in maybe as a blue shirt fireman when you guys were there, but
oh wow,
they've progressed up through and are leading the organization today. You guys had a huge impact on them, and how they do business. So I view this was kind of a team approach that you guys were involved with, and it's pretty special to have that take place.
Oh, that's good.
It was one of the first times too we were able to see our effect, the effect that we have. People like the biochemical effect, like in real time, like with those vests and stuff. You can hear beep 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 beep. We're doing the replays. You can hear people.
That was pretty cool. You guys were there during the Smarter study, and we had these guys monitored, through everything that they were doing throughout their shifts. So yeah, you get them cranked up, and we could literally watch. We can watch what was going on.
What's going on? Of course, my computer is smoky right now. What they were doing to these guys in there, and oddly enough,
y'all set things on fire, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Oddly enough, I saw something when I was studying, and your research actually came up in one of my studies. I'm like, I don't know what's weird now about doing stuff. Like, I can say I know that guy. Like you reading stuff or whatever. I know who that is. I used to read stuff about Forrest Reader years ago, and then next thing I know, Forrest Reader and I having a beer somewhere. We just Forrest Reader, that right here. It's Forrest Reader. It's just strange, how. And these are things that make me feel blessed in what we do, because you read about people, you meet them, you know them, and some people are what you read about, and some people aren't. But I'm not going to name any names, but nonetheless, it's just a great, great experience, and I'm still out of service just as much as I did when I came on the job. I was amazed. I worked 10 days a month and got paid, that kind of money. Until I went to Collinsville, and they get paid even more. But no, but it's all about demographics, budgets, union negotiations, and all that kind of stuff. And generally, we all here to do the same job and make sure we can adequately feed our families and go home every day that we get off. So, and so in this capacity, I'm glad that I'm able to help facilitate that even better with our members at Collinsville. And speaking of succession planning, even though I'm not don't have a active, definite thing in place, and that's something that I hope to talk to you about going forward, just to make sure it matches up with our overall, all of our groups are trying to do. but that's definitely a vision of mine. I was telling the guy the other day, he won firefighter of the year. He's been a really good contributor in helping contribute some necessary training stuff to the training division. But I told him, I said, I'm not doing 30 years here. I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it because I don't want to be, 92 doing it. So I'm not doing 30 years here. But so my longest tenure of working for a fire service is behind me. But my mission, I understand the assignment. That's a Scott Thompson joke. But anyway, I understand the assignment that I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to lay the groundwork, build a training division. And then, but a strong part of that is to pass it on.
Absolutely.
I already told them we shouldn't be trying to get another chief from somewhere else to come in here. And they didn't have one. Whether the master plan was to create the position, and I'm supposed to, jump it, get it. But after we jump it and we get this thing running and get this thing rolling, I'm looking to see who won next. Who got next? Step up and do this thing and build even better than what I'm gonna leave it as. And so I'm already identifying some people. Whether you're officer or not, you want this. You got a decade is that much for it to come get some, and some people are really stepping up and kind of reveal who they are. And as I'm identifying, I'm trying to come up with strategic ways to involve them in the growth of everything and show them what it should look like based on my advice from people like you and all of my friends around the globe, and setting them up for future success. That succession planning that I can look back one day and say, yeah, I was part of that. I'm not, like you said, I'm not forced out. I'm leaving on my own terms, and here's the thing going, and be proud that I'm part of the success. So thanks for the vision, Chief.
Well, I hope that I hope the residents and the leadership of Collinsville understand what a step they took and how critically it is an important step that they took to say, we're gonna bring Larry in. We're gonna put this thing together. Most fire service organizations that I deal with aren't that forward thinking, that visionary, and so. Man, you guys should be applauded for doing that work. And I just hope I hope there's the recognition of excellence that was exhibited in leadership to say, hey, you know what, this is important. We're going to do it this way. It's huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah. Now the leadership is, from everybody I've met, from the city manager, and all the stakeholders that make the mayor and all the decision makers in Collinsville. One of the things that attracted me to the job was not so much like, "Ooh, you could be a chief here," because I was cool. I had a job I love my job as a 13s. But what was attractive when they said, "You're the one we picked," and I was like, "Wow," But the attraction was as I can see the vision and the growth. There's huge economic growth within the next 5 to 10 years in Collinsville with the master plan. And the things I'm studying in the master plan are things that I'm using to help me develop my research, even in my college classes. So now I'm getting kind of a crash course, so to speak, in both. I get to learn what's going on in Collinsville through the matrix of what I have to do for my assignments. So I want to be really, so with that vision cast and me doing my job, going to work every day, I'm not only laying the groundwork for a training division, but I'm also seeing how it all fits into the big picture.
Yeah.
And like seeing all these things line up, and you are an integral contributor to that vision. So once they decided, here's where community is going. We got some things, we got some promises made. We got some money already spent and set aside. We need the fire department to catch up with this to current not going to be sustainable for where we're going. And that's why they, developed the roles that they did with the chief, kind of revamping things. We're in the middle of building a new firehouse. We're making plans for that now. That is, some of the staffing models may have to change. So there's a lot of, I came in at a time where there's a lot of great things going, and to be a part of it and be able to help lay that foundation. Man, I couldn't have picked a better experience. So
that's cool stuff. That's just really good stuff. And
what's exciting about all of that is the notion of how of leaving the fire service better than when you get into it, and all the things that we've been talking about tonight, succession planning, the things with building up the training division and everything in Collinsville, and all of that is about saying, yes, I'm here to do this job, for the community that we serve, but also how am I making sure that when I do leave, even if I haven't directly trained what would be my replacement, how have I created what would be a succession plan for the fire service in general? Have I improved during my tenure? And that's an important thing that that you both would be able to say, that you've done. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
The thing too is the fact that you putting into the minds of firefighters the concept of succession planning. Chief just was saying that the executives and people out here like that are the ones who've really been buying his books and stuff. But that's just, in my opinion, because have been more exposed to what you're teaching, but not necessarily. You don't go to a firehouse and hear people talking about principle centered this and succession planning that. You're like how the principles of putting out a fire. That's what they do. But nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but probably few people have connected the dots that putting out that fire and the principles you use to do that is the same as the fires you put out within yourself and how you think, how you run your, how you elevate yourself up the ladder of becoming an officer or whatever. It's not something that's been commonly, taught in fire. Becoming a firefighter, was that in the firefighter books that you all did when you all became firefighters? Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Not absolutely not. So now, though,
right.
even though they're not as much as the people that were in other professions, it was just mainly because that's who people would target when they would have principles and start talking about principles and all these kinds of things. And so, but now it's like your book and your training program. It's due season.
Well, I'll say this, and we start to wrap up. It's a lot to be said when your book is bought by people outside the fire service. It says a lot about the character of the book because that's the same thing Frank Viscuso deals with. Step up and lead. Most of his clients, or he got a lot of clients outside of the fire service. I mean, he got those contracts with NASA and Jersey Mike's and everybody else. And so people want him to come in and teach step up and lead principles, even though it was, stemmed in his, fire service experience, So it's in good company when it's can cross over different professions and things like that. It's not just a fire service book. It's a principal book. And I used to tell my recruits all the time when I did a recruit class, I said, what kind of business we in? I said, firefighting service, and we're in the people business. We just happen to skill, so we're in the
Well
people
said.
business. Yeah.
Yep.
And when you're in the people business and you really develop yourself as a person, your team, and really use that love for people to serve people, that makes you a better firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
Firefighter lets you understand that it's. And I guess you could use it in the same as we use the priority on the fire ground. It's life safety, property conservation, incident stabilization. Life is all, and so it's no different when we are dealing with people in a non-fire emergency situation. Put that first, and everything else will fall in line. Man, it's been great talking to you again. We want to start to wrap things up, and we have had people on our show a couple of more than a few times, depending on what we're all talking about or how they're involving. So you got a home here if you come out with some new books and some new line people up with solenoids and stuff to test. Feel free to come on and talk about it.
Wow.
I appreciate that very much.
See how we can get you down in Collinsville. I'm still working on the budget for 24 now. So as I prioritize things, we'll let you know what's up with that. But more or less, we're gonna get to see you on the road and see your FDIC and just see. It's just fun communicating like this and seeing each other on the road and just continue to develop these relationships we have with all these great people in the fire service. And for me, to be able to do it with my family like I do is really a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
We've been crazy with each other for a long time, and they won't go away.
Yeah. You just stay, buddy.
Don't start nothing. It won't be nothing.
Stuck with us.
But it's a blessing to with your we're both families, your firefighter family and your family, But we'll start with David. Go around. We'll start with our guest. I don't know what I'm saying. Start with our guest. Have some parting words, David, Mama. Then
Well, my parting words would be what we've talked about all throughout the messaging tonight. It's all about the people. Whether it's about the people we lead or the people we serve, what it is that we do, and whatever role you're in, we cannot lose the fact that it's all about the people.
Mm-hmm. These are the kinds of conversations I, enjoy the most. Just kind of talking about principles and about how aligning yourself with them is aligning yourself with success. How you're able to, like you were talking about, Chief, in the book, being transparent, how you're able to take the challenging times that you had and not look at them as, failures, but as opportunities to learn something that made you better. But even more importantly, things that you could then share with other people. So maybe they don't, hit those same pitfalls or whatever, like Larry was saying, I enjoy going around the country and traveling with him is court ordered, but no, I'm just playing. Is is a thing that that I enjoy doing, but also like talking with and rubbing elbows with people like yourself who what you're saying is really wise and also like highly intelligent on another level, but then you're so down to earth and accessible, and I feel like without even having read the book, that's the kind of experience that the reader will have, and so I just think that that's a real asset. Obviously, it's a real asset also for other people in leadership positions outside of the fire service. So kudos to you, sir, and we look forward to you being back on the show, man.
I love being with you guys, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm just happy to see you again and to hear you, preach. And but also, one of the things I'm most excited about is that this type of teaching and principle-centered information is now reaching, going over into what we used to call blue collar. I don't know if they still use that term, professions, because initially they were mostly targeted with people who were working in offices and, executives and things like that. But everything has its time and everything has its day. So now you are one of the leaders who's brought it to professions that needed it just as much as any other profession. And so, because you can't, the principles belong in, there is no profession that a principal does not belong. And so, I think you're just what you call it, you're a leader, but you're also an innovator, So you coming out with that, and eventually it'll be common under these conditions, under those firefighters and police officers and everybody, in those kind of professions. Just like it is in the one. It's just that they went to the offices first. They went to the executives first and stuff like that. But when you talk about principles, they're applicable to whoever and whatever. And I'm just proud to know that you were insightful enough to say, we need a succession plan, and all those kinds of things, because it was true. And you were the one of the innovators that brought it to them. So you keep on keeping on. And the other people going to see it, know it, because that's who's been targeted so long. But your initial people that you were targeting, don't give up on them. They're coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I told them about the Glue program. You coming now. See, even targeting firefighters, they the ones that needed to be targeted.
Yeah.
And so that was good. So the same thing I feel about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
thank you,
want to
ma'am.
read
I
the book
appreciate
too.
it.
Get me a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Right.
said that so you could give me a book. I'm not. No, I mean, not give me.
We'll get one in the mail to you.
Excuse
My
me.
good friend, Elaine.
Right.
Hey, you got to use what you got.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
no, for real. I just think this is great, 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 great.
Yeah, thank you,
Well,
ma'am.
we had to get you back on the show because Mama kept saying, "We gonna get that nice Craig Haigh back on the show." I was like, "You make it sound like a soap opera,
Right,
Succession."
right, right,
Starring Craig Haigh against the Innovator. So,
right, right.
Yeah,
but,
Maurice Shaw.
right,
I like that kind of stuff.
right. But no, I mean, thanks for being back on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and thanks for continue to be you personalities, principal personalities you can depend on is something that sometimes feels rare today. And so be able to say, you're the same person that we've met and was impressed with how you do things to spend your time, but you haven't changed who you are. And these are things that are important to me because as I continue to grow, continue to weed out the poses and the fake friends, and continue to connect with the real people and the real friends. Um, it's good that somebody's still there, somebody's still home. You know, you come back home, be like, "Where is so and so?" Oh, they was playing principal, but they wasn't really. They was opposed, so we had to kick them out the island, So I'm just glad you're still here and keep. It's going to be a lot of success, and it's probably a lot of things you experience, like David and I have, that things you couldn't even predict that are adding to the success of helping people and making every day getting up in the morning, making it feel fulfilling. Because sometimes people retire and that's it. They just wake up and exist. tell people all the time, I'm always work. I just don't want to have to work, so that's, I'll do something I'm enjoying. And I'm even pursuing more education because there's more insulting, consulting. That too. David does.
Sometimes they go hand in hand.
Whoa, boy.
Right.
Yeah, you get bored. You get bored. Give me a call. I got some work out there. Hand off to you.
Right.
But you're more consulting than so it's gonna be fun. So I'm glad to get out there, brother, and start to be a trailblazer. Because when we get out there and start transition to that, it's enough out there for everybody because it's a cruel world, Craig. And they need our help. I'm sure Craig will understand. We're on the mission from God, so we're gonna be
absolutely.
We're gonna be the Blues Brothers of David, Larry, and Craig Blues.
That was a good one. I had to give that one. That was a good one.
But anyway, it's always good to see you. We'll be in touch and keep up the good. We're praying for you, brother. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. God bless you guys.
God bless you.
We'll be back. We'll be back in another 7 weeks with another great guest. And we start getting into the holidays. By the time we circle back again, and I'll be a year older because he turns on November 1st. I can't say my age from my mom because
he was adopted.
She always said you know
that
how
episode would be sponsored by Medicaid.
Right. Medicaid and being gay,
Right.
But so
this is a good show. This was a good one.
Blessed to see another November 1st. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'll see you guys on the other side of that. Check out our website at www.gluenationldc.com. On the digital fire engineering, David got a series of great articles on the digital version of fire engineering.
Great articles.
He's cranking them out like hotcakes. I mean, and I like hotcakes with sugar-free stuff. So,
right there.
You check those out. I think Matt's gonna hit the hard copy magazine.
Yeah. Good home training. Yeah,
good home training. Look for that. Maybe November, maybe my birthday month or December. So check that out. We all still doing work, putting in work, trying to make the fire service better. So we'll check you out in another 7 weeks and for another great topic on the next episode of the Larry Conley
Radio Show.
Yeah. So, good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit magnagrip.com. Seconds count when responding to an emergency. Minutes save count when documenting your day. Emergency Networking makes records management easier and faster with its fire and EMS solution. User-friendly, complete online and offline functionality, highly customizable, all at an affordable price. For more information, please visit emergencynetworking.com.
IFSTA is dedicated to updating firefighting techniques and safety through the creation of our manuals, apps, curriculum, Resource One, and more. Our high-quality, technically accurate, and affordable training and education materials have made us a worldwide leader of the fire service. Visit us at ifsta.org for more information.
Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforced Technology. Only from Tenkata